Today, all of us together turned a bright new page in modern European history. We proved that even under the most difficult circumstances, democracy cannot be blackmailed.
Voters in Greece delivered a resounding no to the nation's creditors. Now, Greek leaders must go back to those same creditors to ask for more money on better terms. Will Greece get a better deal? Will the rest of Europe compromise to keep Greece in the eurozone? I'm Nathan King, sitting in for Anna Naidu in Washington, D.C., and this is The Heat.
How can we expect yes to win when we had 10,000 suicides, 3 million people living under the poverty line, and 1.5 million people on food handouts?
Greeks say no in a historic referendum that has the potential to reshape the Greek economy and possibly the eurozone. There's already a shake-up at the highest levels of the Greek government. The finance minister resigned Monday morning, saying, "I was made aware of a certain preference by some Eurogroup participants and assorted partners for my absence from its meetings, an idea that the Prime Minister judged to be potentially helpful to him in reaching an agreement. For this reason, I am leaving the Ministry of Finance today." Eurozone nations have agreed to an emergency summit on Greece beginning Tuesday. Here with the latest from Athens is CCTV correspondent Kate Parkinson. Kate, just give us a sense of the mood in Athens over the last 24 hours. There were celebrations on the street after that resounding no. What's the morning bringing?
Well, absolutely huge celebrations here in Athens last night. People celebrating, but also highly shocked. No one really imagined that the margin of victory would be that wide. It's much more muted here in the Greek capital this morning, though. People are extremely nervous about what the next 24, 48 hours will hold. There are still a lot of questions that need to be answered. The pressure is mounting on the Greek government to reach a deal. Of course, there's no guarantee that they're going to be able to do it. The Greek Prime Minister did say that a strong victory in the referendum would strengthen his hand, but others believe that it may have tied his hands. And certainly people are very anxious to know if a deal will be reached. They also want to know when the banks are going to reopen. And there's also a big question as to whether Greece will remain part of the euro. It's certainly something the Greek leaders promise will happen. But while that question remains unanswered, people here rather anxious about the future.
Well, what are people's feelings on the streets of Athens and beyond? Do they want to stay in the eurozone? Do they not?
Absolutely, they really do. The majority of Greek people, I think it's around 75% of people, say they want to remain in the eurozone. The vote in yesterday's referendum was a rejection of the tough bailout conditions, more austerity, pension cuts, tax rate rises. But it wasn't a rejection of the euro, and that's something that the Greek people want the European leaders to understand, and it's certainly something that they are nervous about, because they do believe that if they are kicked out of the eurozone, that life will be considerably difficult for people here in Greece. It's already difficult, of course, but it would be uncharted territory for sure.
And the finance minister has stepped down. He was unpopular in some European capitals. How will that change negotiations, do you think, Kate?
Well, the hope, of course, is that it will make negotiations easier. He was unliked. Some Eurogroup members had complained about his behaviour in meetings. They didn't think it was constructive to the negotiations. He, of course, was replaced back in April, taken out of the negotiation process. And so the hope is now that he's been removed from the ministerial position, that the negotiations will go smoother. It's certainly a gesture from the Greek government, but of course this doesn't come down to individuals. It comes down to very minute details in the negotiation process. So until the Greek government goes to Brussels tomorrow, presents their new proposals. It's not clear whether a deal will be reached, and certainly the resignation of one minister is not enough to reassure the Greek people that there is the chance of a deal finally being reached after 5 months of stalemate.
Still many more answers. CCTV's Kate Parkinson in Athens. Thanks so much for joining us.